Good evening, everybody. This is Brad White at North Sales. Thank you very much for attending our meeting. We're going to wait a couple more minutes and let a few stragglers in the door, and then we'll proceed. I think we have a fun little informative discussion to have tonight, some stories and experiences and fun destinations to get to. So hang tight for another couple of minutes and we'll rock and roll. All right, if everybody's ready, let's start this thing up. Again, thanks very much for attending. We got a couple guys here, Jack Slattery and JB Braun. JB is raised in Marblehead. He's a design engineer for North Sales. He's the head of that stuff. He's done some tremendous things for us at North. And Jack is one of our top sales guys. He was born in Hull, Mass. And has done a lot of great things with his racing all around, big boats, little boats, and all that. The three of us, actually, myself included, grew up on Mass Bay and sailed around with our families. And we've been in most of the harbors and so on. So we thought we'd just talk about where we've been and kind of think about where we're going to go this summer. Talk about some of the great experiences we've had. So I'm going to roll along here and just kind of keep moving. If you have any questions, send them in. And if we can't get to them, you can contact us after the discussion and hopefully we can get back to you. So let's start down in the South Coast area in the South Shore with Provincetown, and I'm going to hand it to Jack and JB. Have at it, guys.
Great. Thanks, Brad. Jack, I guess I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Provincetown, well, okay, so Brad set this up. Yeah, I grew up in Marblehead and I love sailing. I can't think of anything that I'd rather be doing. I gravitated towards racing with my career in sailing. I love the competitive aspect, and now I've transformed that a little bit into cruising. I was on a talk last night with another Marblehead guy, Tyler Hamilton. I don't know if you guys know Tyler Hamilton, but he was one of the domestiques for Lance Armstrong and in the Tour de France, and and big into bicycle racing. And one of the things that we asked him last night in his talk was, "Hey, do you still like racing?" He's like, "Oh no, I've done enough of that in my life, and now I'm into the bike camping." So he likes putting a camping pack on the back of his bike and going out and camping, using the bike to visit all these places. And I'm like, oh my goodness, Tyler, that's exactly what I liked. That's kind of the path, not that I was a Tour de France champion or a domestique, but that's kind of the place that I've gone with a lot of it. I still enjoy racing, but I've also really liked the cruising aspect. And Provincetown is one of those highlight places that I've love to go to. And I have a story about it. One of the things that I've enjoyed is getting to and fro. It's about an 8-hour sail, and you can sort of go a little bit east and go over the primary part of Stellwagen. And when the whales are active, it can be a spectacular show with lots of marine life out there, and always something unique and unexpected on the way there. And that it's needed because it is, in a sailboat, it's 8 hours or so. When you get to Race Point, you feel like you're there, but you don't want to fool yourself because you get another hour or so to get around back in there. And in the picture here, you enter from sort of the top right, you come back around the hook and then back up into the harbor. The aspect that I've really enjoyed is the town. I'm wearing my rhinestone glasses, so I kind of fit in. And I tend to go, I think, to the left when I enter the town, as Jack would correct me if I'm wrong, Jack. That's the way.
The left side is the more funkier side of town, where you'll see this sort of gathering.
Yeah. And one of the stories I just wanted to say is it maybe isn't as much artsy as it was sort of in the 90s and early 2000s. And one of the things that I remember doing is with our kids, we would go in and there are, street artists and they would quite often do caricatures. And in the back here is one in 2000 when we went with, 2001. It's a caricature that we have of my three kids. And we have through the years, various ones starting off with just one, then two, then three, caricatures drawn by the street artists in Provincetown. So to me, it's one of those fascinating spots where it's a great adventure getting there over Stellwagen, and then kind of a unique spot to go to. Most of the time we'll rent bikes, we'll climb the Pilgrim Monument, which has great views there, and then we'll ride our bikes out to the sand dunes through we don't make it generally to Race Point, but out to the beaches. That's been a lot of fun. I think Jack, you've been there a few times.
Yeah, I've been there twice with the New York Yacht Club cruise over the years, which is pretty interesting. It's a different demographic from this picture here. And I've also gone with friends from Marblehead on their sailboat. It's a good sized sailboat. We've been in here, and we've gone left, and there's a beautiful marina in Provincetown, really nice facility, and you can book a slip there, or you can book a mooring there, a public mooring, or a little bit further out inside the hook, you can anchor and take your dinghy into the town dock, and they have dinghy tie-ups at the town dock there. So you go into the town dock, you go left, it's mostly bars and stuff, and you go right, there's a bunch of art galleries. And there's some beautiful art galleries, Cuban art, there's American art, there's all kinds of stuff. And there's a kind of a semi-famous lady there named Ann Packard that has a gallery there. And she does these sort of horizon type things. We've all seen them. You just may not know if you don't know the name, but you've seen her stuff. And so all that's there. You sort of have like a kind of an Eggertown or Nantucket kind of feeling to the right, and then something much more funky and kind of fun on the left side. So it's really a really neat place to go, and you can easily spend a couple of days here if you like.
That's pretty neat. It's on our radar list to get to. Let's move along and come up the coast a little bit. And Jack,
can I add one thing?
Sure.
I don't know if the Boston Yacht Club will be doing the Behringer Bowl this year. It tends to be the end of July. They have a cruising class that starts kind of midday Friday.
Right.
And a racing class that starts in the evening and tends to be finished late at night or early in the morning. But that's always been a fun way to get there. And then they have a great party. But who knows what's going to happen with the state of, what we're doing now.
Thing. Yeah, so that's good, JB. So we've got our ear to the pulse on that. And if anybody listening wants to contact us and find out if it's going on, these regattas are getting canceled, kind of regularly. But we might have an update that you could be that could help you out. So
the other thing JB was talking, I just want to go back to one thing about Stellwagen Bank and the whales. One of the things that you can do when you're going by there is almost always there's whale watching boats out there, so you don't have any problems finding the whales. They'll be out there, and normally you can find them yourself. But if you follow the whale watching boats around a little bit, they always find the whales, and it's easy to. It's a really good thing to do because they're there in the right spots.
Well, very quickly, a little tragically, my wife and I were out there last summer on the 4th of July weekend. There wasn't a bit of wind, so we were motoring. We found the bank, which was easy by the contours on the bottom, but the amount of trash that was drifting around was horrible. So we picked up a bunch of it, and it's just a reminder that the trash is being thrown out. The plastic was all over the place. So try and keep our waters clean. Let's move ahead, guys. All right.
Yep.
Here we are. Jack, what do you know about Clark's Island?
Well, you see the island in the foreground, and in the background is, in the middle of the picture is Saquesh Head, which is a peninsula that sticks off of Duxbury. Both Saquesh Head and Clark's Island are actually part of Plymouth, which is way off to the right, further in, way inside there. And so this is a beautiful area to cruise. Around this island, there's some really deep water. So if anybody has a deeper draft boat, you can easily go in here again, the first time I came here was the New York Yacht Club cruise with 100 boats, and it easily fit all of us in there. And that island actually is available to go on. It has some historical structures. There's a house built in the 1830s out there. And originally, when the Pilgrims came in and scouted the area, this is where they first came into. And there's something called Pulpit Rock. They came in on a Sunday, and it was the Sabbath day, and they weren't allowed to do anything except for pray because of their strict rules. So they went up on top of a rock on top of this island, prayed on this island when they first arrived here into Plymouth Bay. That's where the first place they went to. And anyway, you can contact the Duxbury Historical Society, and you can arrange a tour of the island. You get on the island and this walking path there and all that. And it's just a nice place to spend an evening. It's beautiful out this way. If you want more of a kind of a cultural kind of thing, then you can go into Plymouth. And then in Plymouth, you can see the large marina in the middle there. They can accommodate you, Plymouth Marine there. I think it's owned by Safe Harbors now. And also on the town dock up to a little bit further up to the left, the harbor master's office is up in there. And the town of Plymouth has 12 moorings for boats up to 50 feet that they'll accommodate any visiting yachtsman. I think 12 is probably pretty good. There's probably not a lot more people than that show up on any given day. And Plymouth is worth a look-see. It's got bars and restaurants and stuff, and some other cultural attractions. So it's a pretty decent place. But I think the highlight of coming in to the whole area, the whole bay, is on the outside for the natural feeling that you get. When you like to cruise and stuff like that. It's nice to get away from civilization. You're away from lights, and you can see beautiful stars and stuff like that at night. So it's a good place to be. It's a surprising thing, another surprising thing in Mass Bay.
I got to tell you, I was visiting the Mayflower one time, and if you haven't been aboard the Mayflower, it's a worthwhile thing to do. The characters they have doing the make-believe pilgrims are unbelievable, and no matter how you try and trick them to come out of their roles, they don't do it. They really put on a terrific show. So that's a nice take if you go to Plymouth. Really pretty cool. JB, have you been to Plymouth on your boat?
I haven't.
Yeah, it's one of those places I want to visit. I think it looks good. It's a little ways to get in there, but it should be.
Yeah, I've always not gone in, but the one thing that I've learned is, Clark Island, I've gone past that point a lot, and I've always hesitated to go into Plymouth because of the distance getting in and that. But I'll put that on my list there to tuck in around that point by Clark Island, and that looks like a pretty interesting place to stop over and visit.
Yeah, actually, my uncle
And Plymouth would be too, but I don't.
Yeah, my uncle was delivering a schooner of his named Snow Maiden from Cohasset. He was headed down south one fall on Thanksgiving weekend, and got hit by a blizzard and actually got wrecked, and the boat sank off of Plymouth, and he almost died. So a little bit of a story there. The next here we are at Scituate, which I think is a great place. Easy in, easy out. Super nice people. Jack and JB, what do you got there?
Go ahead, JB. You have some good stories about Plymouth.
Well, Jack's referring to, I told these guys a little story about early on when we had a CNC 27 and we were taking it down to the Cape, and just Kelly and I were going. I think we got my parents to watch we had 2 kids at the time, and my dad had helped me get this newfangled thing that was going to help navigation. It was called a handheld GPS. And I got this Magellan GPS, and we got to the boat, and I'm like, all right, we got to make it to Scituate. We got to get to Scituate and have dinner and then venture on our way down. So boom, we leave. And of course I'm a sailor. So I'm like, okay, we got to sail. So it's kind of light air. We're sailing upwind and the sea and light air, and the CNC 27, it sails okay, but it doesn't like light air upwind. So it took us a little longer. So we had a little extra time. So Kelly's kind of putting stuff away down below, and I get the tiller tied off and the boat's sort of whisking along, and I had enough time to fool around with the GPS. And I'm like, you know what? It says we're headed like 15, 20 degrees different than what the compass says. And I'm like, the GPS, it can't lie. The compass must be off. So I get the screwdriver out. I unbolt the compass. You know, it's one of the ones mounted on the in the cockpit on the
Okay.
cabin top. And so I unbolt it and I'm trying to adjust it. I get the screws out and I'm trying to adjust it, put it back in. And finally I'm like, it's not working, it's not working. And I jam the screwdriver through it. All the fluid comes out. The stuff, it's all over the deck. It's wicked slippery. Of course, right about then, the sun goes down, turns to night. So the compass doesn't work anymore. I had the GPS. I'm like, I have no idea how that works because I spent all the time trying to fix the compass. And it can be, you know, dark and there's no moon and we're pulling into Scituate and all the lights, you know, navigational lights. I got the chart out, trying to look at the chart. All the navigational lights are blending in and we finally figured out how to get in and we used the GPS was actually working, and we kind of use that to navigate in. We get in and we grab a mooring. We're like, oh my God, we get there. And it had one of those alcohol stoves. So of course I'm like, I like cooking on the boat. So I'm like priming the stove. And the next thing I know, fa-foom, the flame goes up, all the hair on the top of my head burns away. And that was our night in Scituate. Which was memorable at this point. And I come out, Kelly's laughing in the background because she remembers that. But the one thing is the GPS was turned to true and not magnetic. So the GPS was fine. It was just, I didn't know how to use it. I broke the compass and it was just the switch that I just had to push on the setup of the GPS to get it to work right. It worked great for the rest of the trip, but Scituate's great. I love going there, and you know, it has a couple little restaurants inside and very friendly.
It's a very compact town. It's
Yeah,
the town docks are very, very well managed. The harbor master is very friendly, and it's easy once you get off your boat. It's all compact. It's all right there. It's quite cute. It's a cute place.
And Jack and I actually, frostbite dinghies, we won a national championship in that harbor, didn't we, Jack?
I think so. In
Yeah.
interclubs, yeah.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yep.
Yeah, good fun. It's a good harbor. It's a lot of fun. Easy in, easy out. The channel is only about half a mile long out to the buoy, so it's really simple. And it does have a quintessential lighthouse. It had something to do with the Revolutionary War, but I'm not sure. I can't remember what that was about. So right up the coast is Minus Light, and it is spectacular on a rough day. This is where I grew up, and you know, one of the rites of passage was to climb up that ladder and just sort of scout around. But what a place! It is fantastic. The original lighthouse was an iron structure that came down in the blizzard of 1888 or something like that. And two guys were on it. And one of them almost made it to shore. They found one off the shore in Nantasket. That was like Simeon or something like that. And then the other guy ended up on a more nearby shore. So tough life on a lighthouse. But Cohasset's great. Jack, I know you've been in there. And I know my friend Lori Gibbons is now the harbor master. But why don't you tell what you think about Cohasset Harbor?
Last year we went in there with you guys are gonna hate this, our power boat. I sail all the time, don't worry. I barely ever use it. But anyway, we went in there and I had called ahead to the Cohasset Harbor Master and they were really friendly. They said they'd meet us when we got there. They told us to call them on the phone and they'd meet us at the entrance, and they did, and they led us to a mooring, and we tied up at the mooring, and then we went and stayed with some friends in town there. But we came back to the boat later on, and they were concerned that there was only we only had one tie up on the mooring, so they came and attached another tie up to the mooring onto our boat while we weren't there. It was just really hospitable. And Cohasset is a lovely little harbor. It's just a really pretty place. You could spend your evening there and really enjoy it. It's surrounded by nature, basically, even though it's it's a really nice town. You can see in this picture that it's quite rural feeling, and it feels that way, especially on the harbor. It's really a nice spot. And even though it's a very small and crowded harbor, they do accommodate visiting yachtsmen. Brad, you grew up there. What
Yeah.
how deep is it at low tide going into Cohasset, do you think?
Well, the channel is very narrow and it silts in. I think they try and keep it dredged to about 7 or 8 feet.
So for most people on the call tonight, most people could easily get in here if they wanted to.
Yeah, the picture doesn't show it, but just outside of the harbor has gotten more shallow over the years, but high tide's not a problem.
It's
I was
safe.
in there a couple of years ago. I draw 6'3" or something, and I was in there, got no problem. Went in at high tide. But the harbor's kind of cool, and I'm going to point out a couple things with the pointer. Over here is where they actually pre-cut the granite stones for the lighthouse off the coast. It's a neat little historical kind of thing right there where the harbor master shack is. And then if you ask, you might be told where the path is up to a rock that's right up here. And if you climb up to the top of the rock, you can look down on the whole harbor. It's a beautiful, beautiful view. And my dad actually owned this boatyard right here. Whoops. Right here, where the rapids are. They used to use the power from the river running in and out to power the tools in the boatyard. And as a little rascal, I used to scamper around underneath the buildings and around the machinery, of course. And there's great memories. Oh yeah, he had that place for a while, and his brother owned it for a while. And then over in this corner of the harbor, at the head over here, is a really nice little restaurant that I actually ran into some old friends there that I grew up with a couple of years ago. So that was kind of a fun reunion. And it is a nice little harbor. I'd love to go back there. It's just really homey, and that's where I started. I used to actually row my little boat from the harbor out to the lighthouse on a good day. It's about 3 miles. And this is the entrance to the harbor. This is Whitehead Rock, and it's had a couple big houses on it. The original house was torn down, and this replaced it. I think they did a nice job on it. And yeah, I'm actually going to be delivering a boat down to that place next Friday afternoon. So that'll be fun to see the owner. Hopefully he's an old hockey buddy of mine. So Cohasset has a place in my heart for sure. Absolutely. And as a rite of passage too, when you were a kid, one of the things that you were dared to do, these are solid things, we call them dolphins. And what you do is climb up here, and there was a sort of a ring that the service guy would stand in to maintain and you'd stand on that, and you'd have to jump out as far as you could down to the water. And I can't tell you the first time how long it took me standing there with my friends below yelling at me, go, go, go. And but finally I got the guts up to jump off. I didn't kill myself. We're going to come up the shore now, because really the next place beyond Cohasset is inside of Boston Bay. And this is where Jack grew up. So I'm going to let Jack take over here, and he can yap about Hull.
Okay, you got your pointer there, Brad?
Sure do.
Okay, so we've got Hull Yacht Club is that the next picture? Is it in here?
Yeah, it is.
It's right there. And I just had the pointer there. This is Hull Yacht Club. And Hull is a very simple sailing yacht club. I grew up there. I lived on this harbor growing up, and lived in Hull year round. And so it was pretty quiet in the wintertime. It's like growing up on an island. That's where
Jack
my house
lived right here. Jack lived right over here.
Yep.
Yep.
And then the island used to be a Nike base. It had radar back in the Cold War days, and it became a condominium development. They renamed it from Hog Island, and they renamed it Spinnaker Island. So it used to be called Hog Island. And I guess that wasn't so good for selling condominiums. But anyway, you can see between Hog Island and Hull, and there's a spit that sticks way in. And you can see there's a narrow opening. So Hull Yacht Club does have some deep water on the inside, but you have to be very careful coming in there. And it's better to go in with a larger keel boat. It's better to go in at a higher tide. But once you're in there, you're okay. And then you're looking in the background. That's Bumpkin Island. That's one of the 43 islands is it 43 or 34? It's I think it's 34 islands of the national park that comprises the Boston Harbor Islands. And Bumpkin Island there has moorings, and you can anchor there off of it, and they have walking trails on that island. and it's a very nice place. And up behind that, on the point up behind it, is Hingham Yacht Club, and they also accommodate visiting yachtsmen. And maybe it's a little easier to get into over there, and might be a more friendly place if you have a deeper draft boat. But that you're looking at sort of the two clubs that comprise this part of Hingham Bay. It's called Hingham Bay, this area. And out in the middle near Bumpkin Island on both sides, mostly on the Hull side, regattas have been held there for 150 years, going back to when the Hull Yacht Club was first founded back in the 1800s. They used to race, it was one of the Boston Yacht Club stations, and wealthy yachtsmen used to race in this area before Hull was all built up. It was a summer colony a long time ago. And so it's a really wonderful bay to sail in. It's flat water all the time, with limited currents, but there are currents that rip through there in places. But it's a nice place to sail.
So Jack, I gotta ask a question. In your little turnabout when you were growing up, what's the furthest you sailed one afternoon when you were exploring around?
Well, I've sailed with the turnabout. I sailed all the way over to Quincy, which is all the way at the other side of the bay.
No kidding. So
yeah, in heavy air, we actually did that to go to Quincy Bay Race Week, which used to be a huge regatta. We get up. I don't know what the numbers were, but there are at least 200 or 300 turnabouts that would do that regatta. So it was a huge deal in the middle of the summertime. And one of the great adventures when you're a young kid was to be able to sail from Hull all the way over to the other side, which is, I don't know, 3 or 4 miles. And it seemed like an amazing adventure, because the waves can be big too on a little boat like that. And that was a great learning adventure. So,
Jack, what can you tell us about this area here that I'm circling?
that's a trustees of the reservations property, probably their most famous one. That's it's called World's End, and it's an Olmsted property. Olmsted himself did a lot of the landscaping there, and it is a spectacular place to hike. It's fantastic. You can go there. You can get there by boat, and on the inside, you can anchor near there and go in. Or you can even drive. You can drive there if you have another day where you're bored, and you can drive to there and park in that area, and it's well worth it. It's one of the best hiking places in all of Massachusetts. It's gorgeous. And at one time back in the early '60s, I think it was, maybe it was even late '50s. I think it was early '60s. They considered World's End to be the site of the United Nations, and New York City won out. Thank goodness, because that would have been the United Nations right there. Hard to believe.
Yeah. I had heard that they were going to connect it to Boston by a series of bridges, hopscotching all the islands. So it would have changed the whole complexion of the bay incredibly.
There's been a lot of talk over the years about connecting Hull to Boston, and it's a long way around, but it's not happened. I don't think it will happen now.
Yeah.
That picture, that big house in the background, by the way, you see that big behind Hull Yacht Club. There's a giant house back there. That was the Fitzgerald house. That was John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the Fitzgerald, like the guy that was the mayor of Boston. That was their house, and the Kennedys, the Fitzgeralds used to summer down in Hull back in the day, and that was their mansion that was down there. Kind of a neat story.
The other thing about the yacht club, two quick things, is you can see right here just a little bit. They still have a number of 110s there. There's a diehard group there. They're fabulous boats to sail. Jack's won the championship a number of times, and if you need a mooring or any favors, his sister is the steward of the club. She takes care of the whole place. So Susie Slattery is the person to talk to there, or Jack.
It's an extremely friendly club.
Yeah, it's a great club. They also they host a great regatta at the end of the summer with a reggae band and everything. So that's worth looking into. So from the other end, looking from the Hingham end, out toward Hull, which is out here, this is Hingham Bay, the inner Hingham Bay, which is really nice. And there's the Hingham Yacht Club. But Jack, talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, if you come through Hull Gut, which will be at the end of Hull, it'll be a little bit to the, I think, a little bit to the right of that. I think that's where's Pettix there, Brad?
There's Pettix right there.
Okay. So Hull Gut through there, you come and you leave Bumpkin Island on your port side right there, and you come straight to Hingham, and that is a deep water channel the whole way. It's a channel. It's a real channel, and you can get a good sized boat in all that way. The Hingham Yacht Club is actually fairly far from town. Down where you see all these boats moored down here is closer to where town is. It's a very nice town, but it is a difficult town to visit from the club. So you'd probably need if you tied up at Hingham Yacht Club, which would be a pretty place to go, and definitely the place you want to go for deeper water. You'd probably want to use an Uber or something like that to go into the cute town, which is very
Yeah,
nice.
the thing about Hingham Bay is that all this water disappears at low tide. You can see the edge of the channel here. And in order to get there, you got to go around like these powerboats already are. And here's World's End again from the other perspective.
Yes.
But one of the cool things are these two islands, and you can go on them. This little guy in particular, it's fun to explore with a young kid. Just neat little traipsing around and looking at tide pools and all that sort of stuff. Yep, Hingham's a great spot. So here we're coming along and we're getting a little bit closer to Boston. This is Boston Light, which actually I think I just heard is back up for sale now for private owner. That'd be quite a neat piece of real estate to have. Don't know why you'd want it though.
This is the oldest continuously operated lighthouse in the United States right here.
Located on Great Brewster, right?
Not Great Brewster, one of the other Brewsters, but not Great Brewster.
Okay.
Great Brewster is the one with the cliff.
Okay.
Little Brewster. It's on Little Brewster.
Little Brewster. So this is kind of an overview of Boston Bay. And you can see what Jack mentioned, all the islands that are part of the Boston Harbor Island State Park with various anchorages and stuff like that. Tell us a little more, Jack.
Well, there are several islands that have anchorages. The national park and other supporting groups support some moorings actually out there. So Gallup's Island, Spectacle Island, George's Island, and Pettix Island all have moorings. George's has 21 moorings. George's has 21 moorings right there, mostly to the left side of the screen there. And there's a big pier there. You can go in there and they give tours on that island. It's a famous Civil War fort called Fort Warren, which is well maintained, and they do historical tours out there. They have 21 moorings there. There are 11 up at Gallup's Island, and I don't know where they're located. But Gallup's is funny because it's a smaller island, and you don't actually go on Gallup's. You actually go to Lovell's. Lovell's Island actually has hiking trails on it and stuff like that. So that's a really nice place. And then Pettix Island, back near Hull, down near Hingham Bay, that has different parts. Like there's inner Pettix, middle Pettix, outer Pettix, and there's also Prince's Head. It's got and you can actually camp on that island. They have yurts out there and stuff like that. But surrounding different parts of Pettix Island, there are 71 maintained moorings around Pettix Island. So that's a very, very viable place to go. And you can go all over that island to the various parts. So it's pretty neat. And there used to be, and there may still be, some people that have summer houses on Middle Pettix. They've been sort of, as generations have changed, they've been shutting those houses down because they're trying to turn it all back into national park, the whole island. That's an excellent.
I had heard that Pettix was the location for an Italian officer prisoner of war camp in World War II, and that they had put up gardens that were supposedly beautiful, grape arbors and everything, and they had quite a location. We gave our enemies waterfront real estate.
And the off of the outer islands like Great Brewster, it's got big cliffs and stuff like that, and you can anchor off of the inner side of Great Brewster toward Boston, and it's very pretty around that whole area between Calf and Brewster, Great Brewster. You get some good protection from the breezes quite frequently there, and it's a nice place to just spend an afternoon. And another nice thing to do on the nice afternoon is to visit the Graves. The Graves Light is out there. It's a beautiful stone lighthouse, a granite lighthouse, and it's privately owned now, and it's being well maintained. They're doing things like copper roofs and new stonework out there. And you go right along that, and it's really pretty. And you can also go along to Little Brewster and go to Boston Light as well. And it makes a beautiful lighthouse tour just to do if you don't feel like spending an evening there. You just kind of can go around and go a couple of lighthouses and show them to visiting friends. And it's a very nice thing to do. The lighthouses are very impressive. It's nice.
JB, have you cruised in Boston Harbor at all?
I have a little bit. I know a few of those islands, George's Island in particular.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've done, not on the south side of the island, but in the city, is we've gone in and over Labor Day and have visited the city. In particular, we've got a slip at Constitution Marina and gone into the St. Anthony's Festival, which generally happens the end of August, first weekend of September. It's canceled this year, unfortunately, but it's kind of a street fair. They close the south end down, and they have a lot of street band entertainment, music, and a lot of street food where the vans and things will pull in, and it's quite an exciting environment. And Constitution Marina has been great. You just walk across the bridge and have that, and that's been one of the things we've done a couple times in Boston.
Cool. Very cool.
I know
Yeah,
Jack.
Boston's a lot of fun. Of course,
Yeah.
you got Faneuil Hall and places like that too. So
Yeah.
it's all within walking distance. Constitution Marina is a great little marina. They're very friendly and nice people hanging out there on their boats. It's a good time.
They have nice facilities there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Nice spot.
Yeah, if you don't want to stay on your boat, they also have the cabins that are built on docks right
Yep.
there. So you feel a little bit of the motion, or if you have an overload, they have places to rent right there.
Yeah. So we're going to move up to Marblehead now, and you guys both live in Marblehead. So much fun racing out of Marblehead, and so many things to see, from Abbott Hall to the Marblehead Light and so on. I'll let you guys have it here because you know it better than I do.
Yeah, I can go. Well, I grew up here, and I think Marblehead has had a reputation of maybe not being the most friendly environment for cruising sailors. And I think over the last few years that has changed with Mark Sousa coming in as harbor master. We've expanded the transient moorings, where we have like 5 moorings right along the waterfront. The docks at the end of State Street and in front of the harbor master's office are open to reserve and rent. So you have moorings in there, which is, the more desirable place to go. They also have the dockwise moorings at the mouth, which at times can be okay, but it could be a rolly night if you're spending the night out there. And also the yacht clubs. There's 5 yacht clubs that potentially have transient moorings available if you contact them: the Corinthian, Eastern, Boston, Dolphin, Marblehead.
Yep.
I'll have the potential for members moorings that aren't using them at the time. Great place to visit. I know, there's maybe not now, this instant, but downtown on State Street, there's lots of, restaurants that you can walk to. So it has a really unique feel. You get in the harbor, as Jack pointed out, like in Cohasset, where you feel like you're maybe in the woods. Marblehead has a little bit of that feel on the water, although with all the boats, it's hard to feel totally secluded, but you do get away. And then if you want a little bit of a town feel, you can go into town and at the town dock and walk up, and there's lots of little restaurants in there.
And
You have something to add, Jack?
Marblehead has, in Old Town, Marblehead, it has the largest, the biggest grouping of colonial era wooden homes in the country. Marblehead has more of those than in one spot than anywhere else in the whole country.
That's
So
good.
walking around Old Town is pretty cool. It's unique. There's nothing like it. So it's really worth getting out over that side. And like JB said, just getting off on the town dock on that side, you've got the landing restaurant right there. Right up the way from there is Maddie's, which is a famous place. And then a little closer to where I live, a little bit down to the right, is the Barnacle restaurant, which is a great seafood shack. It's a great spot, just like what you imagine with the fried clams and all that stuff. And then up in town, there's a bunch of other things too. But so there's a lot to do there. If you have reciprocity with any of the clubs, they are beautiful. The Corinthian Yacht Club has an unbelievable porch that looks over the whole harbor. It's got an incredible setting. The Eastern is a really fancy club, just really high end, really nice place. So if that's your sort of thing and you have reciprocity with any of these clubs, you can check that out. They're beautiful to go to. And on the Marblehead side is the Boston Yacht Club, and the Boston is probably the friendliest of all three for visiting yachtsmen. The dock manager there is a guy named Ken Breen. He's quite accommodating for visiting yachtsmen with moorings and stuff like that. So the Boston could be a really good place to check out, especially with your access to the old town on that side. My boat actually has a mooring on the entrance to the harbor where you'd have to go quite frequently. And it's honestly not too bad. So, but if you've got a northeasterly breeze blowing in, that wouldn't be a great place to go. But otherwise, it's not too bad most of the time. That's
So
it.
one of the things that some of these harbors do or have done in the past is illumination on 4th of July. And I know Marblehead is spectacular. Don't know if it's going to happen this year. I think it could. Doesn't have a lot to do with social distancing, but the gathering of people will probably be discouraged, unfortunately.
We have friends from Scituate coming for 4th of July.
Do you really?
Yes, and I don't know what will happen, but there are people coming, and it should be fun with proper behavior. I think it should be okay.
So around the corner from Marblehead is Salem, and it's in the past few years they've made a real effort to make Salem more of a town that's not completely associated with just the witches. They fixed up the Derby Wharf area where there's a tremendous history of ships coming back and forth from the trading all around the world, the whaling days and the trading days with the Far East and so on. And a nice walk is this little Derby Wharf walk out to the lighthouse, this little lighthouse. It's actually, I think it's a half mile each way. But again, like JB was saying about Marblehead, the Salem harbor masters have made a real effort to be friendly and accommodating to visiting yachtsmen. So I wouldn't hesitate to go into here because it's not all about the witches and so on, although there is a lot of history here. So it's fun to learn about it, and it's all within walking distance of the harbor. And, I have an ancient relative of some sort, at Martha Carrier, who was tried as a witch, although it was at the end of the trials and she was exonerated. But it was a sort of a dark time in the history of our country, but things go on. So we're going to go up from Salem, we'll go up to Manchester, which is a great little tiny harbor, very safe and secure in a bad storm. You need to contact the harbor master or Manchester Marine or the yacht club for a mooring. And they do have a lot of moorings outside, which aren't quite as nice because it gets a little roly-poly out there. Jack, JB, what can you tell me about Manchester?
JB?
Well, I heard that they're going to be running a launch service from downtown, which is in the bottom of the picture here, out to the mouth this summer, accommodating visiting yachtsmen that boats, that are anchored out there or grab a mooring. And that will be running, I think, predominantly on the weekends. Mark
Cool.
Strass was telling me about that. I don't know the details of it, but I heard that because it is tight in here and it's quite often hard to find space, but down at the end of the harbor, they have the town float, and Captain Dusty's, the ice cream shop, is right across the street there.
Great ice cream.
Yeah, great ice cream. So if you have a smaller boat in there, you can tie up for a little bit on the town dock, not too long.
Yeah, they're going to be pretty strict about that
Pretty-
this summer, JB.
yeah.
I saw a notice from the harbor master about that. So
Yeah. So I think that's where that launch service is coming in and
Yeah.
maybe opening up.
cool. And then what do you know about this little island out here?
Misery Island. I love Misery Island in so many ways. The right where your cursor is there, that's Cocktail Cove. That can be nice. It can be. They have maybe 30 moorings there.
Yeah.
A lot of them are private. I tend to go in, just grab one. You don't tend to get kicked off. On the other side, if that side tends to be a lot of smaller powerboats. In between Great Misery and Little Misery is a great spot, a little more open. Sailboats, maybe a little more accommodating there. It can be a little rougher, especially in a northeast breeze.
Yeah.
And if there is a northeast breeze on the west side of the island, sort of, yeah, over on that side, Brad, they have 3 or 4 moorings right tucked into that cove there that are
Yeah.
spectacular. You generally get out of the breeze, tucked right in there. There's a couple little beaches that you can pull your dinghy up. Great hiking trails. It's part of the trustees of the reservation spot. So the trails, I was out there not last weekend, but the weekend before, and we were hiking around, but it looked like the trail maintenance hasn't been done because a lot of blown down trees covering the trails and that. So, but a great afternoon.
My first experience on Misery, we were out there, and lo and behold, my son found a little, like a metal box. So we looked in it, and there were some little gadgets inside, of maybe a matchbox car and a couple little things, and a piece of paper, a pad of paper, and a notebook. And it was the first time I'd ever heard about geocaching. And geocaching is a worldwide game. And if you're visiting Manchester or Essex, Mass, or Salem, or people have gone around, they're part of this whole kind of culture, and they hide boxes of little gadgets around, and they leave. And you go online, geocaching.com, and you can say, okay, I'm going to Bermuda, for instance, or Culebra down by Puerto Rico. And what am I going to do there with my kids? Well, you take a handheld GPS, you've been online, you've got the coordinates for supposedly this cache of stuff, and you go on a treasure hunt for it. I've done it up in New Hampshire. And actually, there's one right down behind my house here in Essex. And you can spend a good time. The kids take the walking GPS, and they follow it around, and they can find these little boxes of stuff. You open it up, and you fill out, when you were there and what's going on. And they've actually got things called, oh gosh, it escapes me, but people have put things in there that are supposedly say, leave a note, I'm trying to get to California. And you take this little gadget with you, and you take it to the next place you're going. Maybe you're going out to Western Mass or something, and you put the gadget in the box you find out there. And eventually the gadget makes it from one place to the next. It's really a cool thing to do, especially with young kids. Very entertaining. One of the iconic things about Manchester is the cupola as you come into the harbor on the left side. And the dock there is open. It's a little bit of a walk. You don't really want to walk from here to downtown. You're better off to go further into the harbor. But this is a great place to just kind of meet people, quick pickup and drop off of people that might be coming to meet you. We've used it for that before. And that's the cupola there. And then right here is the yacht club, which is a very great little yacht club. It's just small, just sailing, simple place, lots of nice people there. Up the coast a bit further, we're going to skip over Beverly, but then you get up to Gloucester, which is a great spot. And I happen to love going here. There's a lot going on. It's a fun harbor, especially up in here and around the corner where you get to the art colony back in here. Some good restaurants, fun places. But Jack or JB, let me hear what you have to say about those.
I'm gonna go,
Well,
JB.
You
Want to go, JB, or me?
Yeah. I don't know. The only thing I haven't been up in there a lot in a sailboat. I have taken little power boats up into the studio restaurant where your cursor was back in there. They have docks. I wouldn't bring our sailboat into there, maybe grab a mooring and then dinghy in. They do take reservations on the docks if you call the studio, or they have. I don't know what, this summer.
Yeah.
That's been fun to do. Gloucester is it is a unique spot to tour around. I have more experience with the Annisquam Canal and that end, but the Gloucester Harbor is it's a mix of industry downtown and where Brad is, and then the sort of Bass Rock, is it Rocky Neck?
Yeah, this is Rocky
yeah,
Neck right here.
which is more touristy style, artsy.
This building, the old paint building, is now occupied by a nonprofit that's doing a lot of whale research. And it's a neat place to visit. That's really kind of cool. They've done a lot to preserve the building. And
They have? It looks like, I was just by there. I was like, oh.
yeah, no, the
It looks in
upstairs,
rough shape.
the upstairs is in the office. Oh man, it's better than Jack's or my office. It's really, really nice. Right in here is good anchoring, and there's room to anchor. If you're pragmatic and you don't want to spend the money, the $25 on a mooring, it's good holding ground. And then right there, right around there is the town dock where you can tie a skiff up to, and then it's just a quick walk to downtown all along here. This is a new big hotel right here. It's quite fancy, has a roof deck you can get to if you're renting a room. But generally the downtown is really, really neat.
Isn't the slippery pole right there, or just to the left there, right off?
Right here, yeah. That's a big fun event every summer. The Greasy Pole.
The greasy pole, yeah.
Greasy Pole. Oh yeah, that's an entertainment.
That's a lot of fun to watch.
This might be it right here, actually, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jack's done that a few times.
No.
This is Eastern Point Yacht Club. Jack and I spent an evening there after we towed a boat up from Marblehead, and then we subsequently got shipwrecked after that, one way or another. But this is a nice anchorage, but it can be very, very roly-poly with the sea coming in, wrapping around the breakwater, and the big Gloucester fishing boats going in and out. So it can be really roly-poly. You're better off way in the harbor, inside 10-Pound Island in there. But I point out to these guys a couple weeks ago, this cove, Brace's Cove over here, if you want to come in, you don't want to draw a lot of water, but you can come in and hug this shore, look for the lobster pots, New England navigation, lobster pots generally in 8 feet of water. But in here, it's a pretty big cove. It's about 200-300 yards in diameter. And these ledges right here break up a lot of the surge from the ocean. And it is so quiet and peaceful. It's really, really neat to go in there. Great place for a day picnic.
Brad, I get a story about Brace's Cove. When I learned to sail with my parents, and the first boat we bought was a Morgan 22.
Oh, cool.
And we sailed it all around. We had it out to Nantucket. We've had it up to Maine. And one of the nights we spent on it, we were in Brace's Cove, and we anchored there next to our good friends who had this maxi yacht, which I thought was a maxi yacht. It was a Grampian 26. and we were rafted together in Brace's Cove. Well, little did we know, the wind shifted to the east and picked up to be like 25 knots. And of course, the boats were smashing together. Who knows how they were tied together, because we had no idea what we were doing. I was probably 5 years old, 6 years old or so. And so we tried to unraft, and my dad got in the dinghy and he took the anchor with him, and he said, "Watch this anchor line and don't let the end go off the bow." And it's like 2 a.m. I'm like 6 years old.
Oh, David.
And you can predict what happened. But we finally were able to separate the boats and anchor in there. So Brad's right. It is quite quiet, and unless the wind blows from the east.
Yeah, you don't want to be there when the wind blows from the east. Northwest, like in the fall when there's a northwester, it's like a mill pond. It's beautiful.
The Morgan 22, it had a centerboard, so it only drew 22 inches. But the centerboard.
I'm actually in discussions with a guy who's got a Morgan 22. He sails it up in Maine. It sounds like he has a ton of fun on that boat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is one of the things about Gloucester Harbor is this is sort of the waterfront. That's the Ardelle, which is built by Harold Burnham here in Essex. There are no metal fastenings on that boat. He makes his own wooden trunnels, and you can charter that boat for an evening sail. Did it with a bunch of friends. It's a total blast. And then behind it, the dark hull, is the Schooner Adventure, which has gone through a complete major refit. There's a great nonprofit that has worked on that boat. And her spars are up now, and you'll see her in the schooner races every year, which Labor Day weekend is a total blast. So if you haven't seen the schooner races, it's worthwhile to come up to Gloucester Harbor on Labor Day weekend and hang out. You go to restaurants or cook on the boat like JB likes to do, And the schooner races are so beautiful. They usually get blue nose down from Nova Scotia, and they'll get, is it Atlantic? No, not Atlantic. There's another one. It's 125 feet on the deck. It was another boat that was built right in Essex on the Essex River. It's a beautiful, beautiful boat. Columbia. This is a replica that was built by a guy. He actually built 2 hulls, fitted one out, and he's been sailing it around on the East Coast. It's such a pretty boat. It's amazing. So finally, we get up to Rockport Harbor, and I spent the night in there last year, one time with JB. But I'll let JB go on this one because he knows more about it than I do. He's been there a number of times, and he's probably painted motif number 1 there, the red building.
Yeah. You don't want to see my art, Brad. It's fairly technical. Well, Brad and I, we went up. We were going up to the Isle of Shoals the end of last year, and we went in, and right where the cursor is, there's these 2 finger docks, and you can rent them. You call the harbor master, and it has amazing availability. Most of the, if you give enough lead time, we had, a 35 footer and 40 footer in there, sailboats. We brought our own dinghies, and there's a town float, just right, literally 100 feet, 30 meters from from those floats. Right behind the blue boat there, and that's tied up. And then there's another finger float to the left on the other side of that boat, more by the Sandy Hook Yacht Club. Rockports, I love going there. It feels like you're in another world, really.
Yeah.
It has a unique feel to it, and I don't know about any other moorings other than these 2, the finger floats that I've used several times, and available through the harbor master. Remember one of the trips that we went up there, I had my kids on the boat a long time ago. And as we were sailing up to Rockport, we talked about going shopping and down in Rockport, and the kids were like, "Dad, can we use American money in Rockport?" It was like a transatlantic, like Jack's turnabout trip, going to Quincy Race Week. It was like an adventure, But these are the things that you got to cherish, and you got to get out and do it. And Rockport was, it is a little bit of a way, at least from Marblehead, it's a few hours, but Thatcher's Island and I don't know, Brad, what did you think about that?
Oh, I loved it. The first time I went up there a couple of years ago, we took the boat, we went around, we had a beautiful sail from Salem, set the spinnaker, reached out. I went inside of Thatcher's. I went inside of all the rocks and ledges. It must have been high tide, just poking my way through carefully. I would probably never do it in daylight. It was pitch dark, and I didn't know where I was going, but I had faith in my GPS this time, JB. And we actually went around the other side of Rockport Harbor to Sandy Bay. Sandy Bay.
Oh yeah.
It's right around the corner, and where you can see the big windows for the Chalou Theater.
Yeah, we've got one weekend we went up just for a concert up there.
Yeah, so we could see the music being played. We couldn't hear anything, but we anchored right off out in front of that place. Yeah. Lit the grill, had a great evening. It was fantastic. And then we went further in and went up the Essex River, which is not really recommended, but it was really fun to be there. It was a full moon night. It was amazing. So, and as we kind of loop back through the Annisquam River Canal, JB's been through here 3 times. So go ahead, JB. Tell us excitement.
I went through 3 times with the sailboat last summer. I've been through a few more times, but only at high tide with the sailboat.
Yeah. And
hopefully on a rising tide.
Yeah.
Outgoing and.
But keep in mind that I think it's right over. Let me get my pointer on it, but right over here, which is the Cape Ann Marine. You're entering the harbor here, so red right returning, and when you get to Cape Ann Marine, it changes because then you're entering from the other side, from the Gloucester Harbor side. So the buoys change.
I never knew that.
I
have to pay more attention.
It's a really cool canal, and And I've heard that it sees more boat traffic on a weekend than just about every other canal in the country. So
JB, how high is your mast? How do you get onto the 128 there?
It's fine. We're at like 50 feet.
yeah, the bridge is high.
Okay.
The bridge is very
Yeah.
high. And Jack, what
You
find
always
out about
question
the
it when you
cut
look at it, Jack. You're always like, oh.
Well, when we went through last summer, we got really close. My sister-in-law is not the most seafaring person, so just as we were getting right there, I said, "Oh my God, I don't think we're gonna make it," and she started freaking out. It was pretty funny, but it didn't stop her from knitting. JB, she kept knitting. So Jack, what do you know about the back this way is a drawbridge, and at the other end, no, I'm sorry, the drawbridge is over here. Here are the
That's two.
railroad tracks. And at the other end is the cut bridge. What can you tell us about those?
But when you come in from Gloucester Harbor, which is one of the entrances, one of the ends of it, there's a bridge called the Bly Bridge, or the Blyman Bridge, and it opens and closes on schedule. But you can contact them on Channel 13, and they'll open the bridge for you, or they'll tell you what the schedule is, and you can wait. And there's a railroad bridge beyond that also opens and closes, also on Channel 13. But normally that one's open. But if it's not, it can be difficult because there's current coming through here. So you sort of have to keep your nose into the current all the time when you're waiting around. So it can take a little navigational skill, especially on a weekend while you're waiting for one of the bridges to open.
Yeah.
But I suggest that you would want to do this on on weekdays mostly, unless you have a pretty small boat, because it can get kind of congested and a little stressful in here sometimes. But it's absolutely beautiful, so it's very much worth doing. But if you have any draft, you don't want to be on the lower half of the tides. You'd rather be on the upper half of the tides. A rising tide would be preferred, but it doesn't make any difference if you're near a high tide going through. It only takes, how long does it take to go from one end to the other at a leisurely pace? How long do you think it takes?
Like 35, 45 minutes.
Yeah, so it's not that big a deal. As long as you are more than half tide, I'd say with most boats, you'll be fine. If you have a really big boat with several feet of draft, then you'd want to do it near high tide.
Yeah, yeah. So guys, let's just move ahead because I think it's about time to wrap this up. Couple of experiences. This is out at Stellwagen, and clearly that's a scene and a half. I just can't imagine it. When I went out to Stellwagen, I didn't see anything other than trash, which is sad. But JB have you seen anything like this, JB?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes, I have. At Stellwagen.
Really?
Actually, coming home from the Behringer Bowl, two summers ago.
Breached right next to you.
I wouldn't say it wasn't quite that close, but yeah, they were breaching. That's
cool. Jack, have you ever been out to Stellwagen?
Yes, a few times. And every time we've been near there, we've seen plenty of whales. It's really cool. The whales, they don't hide underwater. They like to show off. I think they know they're showing off, and they're beautiful, beautiful whales. So they're huge too. They're just tremendous. So it's so easy to do. It's only a few miles off of Provincetown. You don't really have to go out of your way much to go there.
Well, it actually extends from the end of Provincetown almost all the way to Cape Ann. It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
It's really pretty cool. So one of my great experiences on the bay was I was a young rascal and I had my laser, and the racing had been called off because the weather was too stormy for the 210s out of Cohasset. So what did I do? I was probably 14, so I must have been 16 because I had my license. So I jumped on my laser and went out, and I used to sail out from Cohasset, a northeaster, pretty much close hauled. You could get straight out to Minus Light, which is 3 miles out. And then I would bear off and surf the waves all the way down to the Graves off of Boston Harbor, all by myself. I was out there all alone. And then I would jibe and sail all the way along the coast, going in around the beach areas where the surf was really big. And, it would take like 3 or 4 hours. It was a great adventure. One time I was off of Minus and I capsized, no big deal. But while I was there and I was kind of getting myself organized, the boat turtled, and then the centerboard slipped through the trunk. So there was nothing for me to grab to flip the boat upright. And you can picture me, I'm out there and I'm all alone. And the only way I could get the boat upright was to swim under the boat, pull the centerboard out, put it in the bottom of the boat upside down, right the boat, go under the boat again, pull the centerboard down, clamber aboard, hopefully before the boat capsized again, insert the centerboard, and maybe I could go. 2 tries before I could get it done. I was sure I was a goner. But I didn't. I made it. You know, I never really panicked. I was just like, I'm in a pickle of trouble here. But that was one of my great experiences on the bay. And it is a great spot. Most places are within a day's sail. Many are shorter than that. It's a great place to explore and check out. And by all means, please do it. This has been a tough year. We got to get our boats in the water and go sailing and enjoy the sunsets and so on, because this is such a special sport we all get to play in. And I just want to thank Jack and JB for sharing their stories. And if anybody out there has questions, you can contact us at these email addresses. And hopefully we can get you an answer pretty quick for anything you need to know about the bay or fun places to go. And I know Jack's been up to Maine, I've been up to Maine, and JB certainly sailed all over the East Coast. So thanks very much for attending. Thank you, JB. Thank you, Jack. And I'm going to sign off now. And thank you all very much. Have a good day.
Thanks, Brad.
All right, you guys.
Thanks,
Take
Jack.
care.
Everyone.